Title: The House Built on Forgotten Graves. The Unearthed Ground. Don't forget to subscribe, or the next sound you hear in the dark might be someone who never left their grave. The first scream came on a Tuesday night. It was short, sharp, and ended too suddenly, the kind of sound that doesn't echo, because the air itself seems to hold its breath. Flat 3B, Hallowmere Court, had been quiet since the tenants moved in 6 months earlier. A young couple, Martin and Eliza, drawn by the cheap rent and the promise of newly renovated flats in a historic part of London. But no one told them what the history really was. That night, Eliza sat alone in the living room, a cup of tea cooling on the table beside her. The walls creaked from the heat pipes, the steady hum of the refrigerator the only sound. Martin was working late at the hospital. When the scream came, it wasn't from outside. It came from below, from the floor. The cup rattled as if from vibration. Eliza froze, her eyes darting down. Then silence again. She waited, holding her breath, listening. The flat beneath theirs was empty. The real estate agent had told them it hadn't been rented out yet. Eliza pressed her ear to the carpet. A whisper, soft, wet, like someone gasping through soil. She jerked back and stumbled to her feet. "No," she muttered, shaking her head. "It's just the pipes, just the pipes." But the moment she said it, the lights flickered once, twice, then steadied. That's when she noticed the picture frame on the far wall had turned slightly, by itself. When Martin returned after midnight, he found her sitting on the sofa, lights blazing, every window open. "Eliza!" She jumped at the sound. Her hands were trembling. "You didn't hear it?" He frowned. "Hear what?" "The scream," she whispered. From under the floor. Martin knelt, listening, then laughed nervously. "Maybe it's the building settling." These old estates, it's new, Martin. They built this place in the 80s. He hesitated. "On old land, though. This whole area used to be part of the old Hallowmere Hospital grounds, the plague hospital," she said softly. "I Googled it." Her voice was flat now, almost detached. She held up her phone. On the screen was a news clipping from 1983. Construction crew uncovers mass burial site in East London. Over 200 skeletons found. The article mentioned the developers had removed and relocated the bodies before continuing construction. But at the end, a single line stood out. Several workers claimed strange sightings after the excavation, including voices, shadows, and missing tools found buried again the next morning. Martin tried to brush it off, but that night, sleep didn't come easily. At 2:47 a.m., he woke to the sound of dripping water. He got up, checked the bathroom dry, then the kitchen nothing. But as he turned back toward the bedroom, he saw it. Muddy footprints leading down the hallway. Small, bare, and wet. They stopped just short of the bed. He followed them with his eyes. They started near the wall. He leaned closer, tracing the first print. It wasn't on top of the carpet. It was underneath it. He staggered back, heart racing, staring as the faint outline of another footprint appeared slowly, as though being pressed from below. "Eliza!" he shouted, his voice cracking. She sat up instantly. "What's happening?" he pointed. The footprints were forming a trail from the living room to their bedroom door. And then a low voice whispered from the hallway, a voice dry, muffled, and close. "You shouldn't have built here." The lights went out. The next morning, Martin and Eliza didn't speak much. The flat was quiet, too quiet, like the air had turned heavier overnight. Every creak of the wood sounded deliberate, every shadow too dark. Eliza sat by the window, her face pale. "You saw it too," she said quietly. Martin nodded, rubbing his temples. "I saw it." Neither of them mentioned the footprints again, but both avoided looking at the floor. That afternoon, Eliza called the real estate office. When the receptionist answered, her voice trembled. "We're having problems. Strange noises, we think." The woman cut her off. "You're in Hallowmere Court, right?" "Yes." A pause. Then the receptionist sighed. "You're not the first to call." She lowered her voice, almost a whisper. "Some tenants said the same thing before they left voices at night. Cold spots, things moving. The company sent a priest once, years ago. You could try speaking to him." An hour later, they had a name and an address. Father Richard Holloway, retired, now living in a small parish 2 miles away. When they arrived, the old priest was tending to candles inside the dim chapel. His white hair glowed in the candlelight as he turned to greet them. "I thought they'd stopped building on that cursed soil," he murmured when Martin explained where they lived. "What do you mean?" Martin asked. Father Holloway sighed. "That ground was part of the Hallowmere burial trench, one of the largest plague pits in London. When they built your flats, they didn't move all of them. Some are still beneath the foundations." Eliza's hands tightened around her coat. "We heard voices. We saw footprints." The priest nodded solemnly. "Then they've awakened again. The land remembers." He agreed to come with them that evening to bless the flat. At sunset, Father Holloway stepped through their doorway holding a small brass cross and a vial of holy water. The flat felt cold, airer than usual, a sharp drop that made the windows fog. He began to pray softly as he moved through the rooms. His voice echoed strangely, bouncing off the walls like there was more space than there should have been. In the hallway, the air thickened. Eliza shivered. "It's freezing in here." Father Holloway sprinkled water along the skirting boards. "Spirit of peace," he whispered, "we ask that you rest." A low groan came from the walls. Then a sound, faint but distinct, like fingernails scraping beneath the floorboards. Martin's stomach twisted. "Father." The old bull raised the cross, his voice steady but louder now. "In the name of Christ, I command you to leave this place." The temperature plunged. The lights flickered violently. A glass shattered in the kitchen. Then, from beneath the carpet, a shape began to rise, faint outlines of hands pressing up from underneath. Eliza screamed and stumbled back. "They're under us!" Father Holloway threw more water onto the floor, but the boards began to pulse, expanding and creaking like something was pushing upward. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the entire flat, not one, but many. Layered, whispering, overlapping. "You built on our bones." The walls began to shake. Photographs fell from the shelves. Martin grabbed Eliza, pulling her toward the door, but it slammed shut on its own, locking them inside. Father Holloway's voice rose, desperate now. "Rest, lost ones. Rest." Then silence. The shaking stopped. The air went still. Martin dared to breathe. "Is it over?" The priest lowered his cross slowly. "For now," he said. "But you mustn't stay. This house remembers death. It doesn't forgive it." That night, Martin and Eliza packed what they could. They slept with the lights on, waiting for morning. But sometime after 3 a.m., a distant scream echoed again, the same one Eliza had heard the first night. Only this time, it didn't come from on the floor. It came from the walls. And faintly, so faint it could have been the wind, a whisper followed. One stayed behind. The one who stayed. The morning after the scream, the flat looked normal again. too normal. Eliza hadn't slept. She sat on the edge of the bed, her eyes hollow and red, the morning light leaking through thin curtains. Martin was silent, standing by the window, watching rain smear across the glass. "We're leaving," he said finally, "today." But as he turned, Eliza wasn't looking at him. She was staring at the wall, a faint dark mark spreading outward like dampness. "Martin," she whispered, "it's moving." He followed her gaze. The stain grew, rippling like it was alive. Within seconds, it formed the faint outline of a hand pressing from inside the plaster. Martin grabbed her arm. "Go. Now." They bolted out of the bedroom, racing for the front door, but it wouldn't open. The handle wouldn't move. The key twisted but jammed halfway. Then the radio on the kitchen counter switched on by itself static. Then a faint voice. "You built over us, and one of you belongs to us now." Liza screamed. She spun around. The hallway lights were flickering again, the bulbs popping one by one, glass raining to the floor. In the silence that followed, she whispered, "Call Father Holloway." When the priest arrived that afternoon, the air around Hallowmere Court felt heavier, darker. Even he seemed uneasy as he stepped through the door. "It's stronger now," he murmured. "Something has rooted itself here." He began unpacking his things, the brass cross, a small prayer book, a candle. As he lit it, the flame leaned sideways, as if drawn toward the living room wall. "There," he said quietly. "That's where the graves are." Eliza's voice shook. "How can you tell?" "Because they're calling," he replied. He placed the candle on the floor, kneeled, and began his prayer. The Latin words rolled through the air, low and steady. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the floorboards beneath the rug started to bulge. Cracks split across the wood. Dust lifted in thin gray clouds. Father Holloway shouted louder, his voice trembling with age and fear. "Rest in peace, all who were forgotten." The air turned icy. From beneath the floor came a single scream, long, raw, inhuman. The boards burst open, sending shards of wood flying. A pale hand reached up through the splinters, grasping the candle and snuffing it out. Darkness swallowed the room. Eliza's voice broke. "Martin, where are you?" But there was no answer, only the sound of someone breathing, ragged and close. Then a whisper. He stayed behind. The lights flickered once, revealing Martin standing at the far end of the room. His face was pale, his shirt stained with dust. But his eyes weren't his anymore. They were dark, unfocused, glinting faintly in the candlelight. "Martin?" Eliza whispered. He smiled faintly. They needed someone to remember. Father Holloway raised his cross, his voice breaking. "Leave him." The room shook again, plaster raining from the ceiling. A howling sound rose from under the floor, hundreds of voices screaming in unison. Martin turned toward Eliza, his expression empty. "It's all right," he said softly. "I can hear them now." She backed away, tears streaking her face. "Please don't." He stepped forward, each movement slow and unnatural, the floorboards groaning under his feet. "They're still here, Eliza. All of them." Then, suddenly, silence. The air grew still. When Eliza blinked, Martin was gone. So was the priest. The flat was quiet again. Empty. Untouched. Only one thing had changed. The floor where Martin had been standing had sunk slightly a new hollow beneath the boards. The next morning, neighbors heard hammering coming from inside the flat. But when they checked, it was locked. No one answered. A week later, new tenants moved in. They said it felt a little cold, especially in the living room. Sometimes they'd hear tapping beneath the floor at night, like someone knocking, trying to get out. And when the estate agent came to check the place one last time, he noticed a faint inscription scratched into the wood under the rug. 4 words, carved deep and uneven. "We built on graves." If you thought this story was terrifying, the next one will haunt you even more. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it.